Good morning and welcome to Blytheweigh Business News. I am Bonnie Hughes. Our guest today is Thor Mining. They have a project in Australia. They also have a project in Nevada and a project in South Australia, and they've accomplished many things this year. Here to tell us all about what has happened and what will be going forward for the company is Mick Billing, CEO. Hello, Mick, and thank you for joining us all the way from Australia.
G'day, Bonnie. Nice to talk to you. And is it too early to say Merry Christmas, or should we wait for a bit longer?
Oh, no, you can say it right now. That's all good. And
Okay.
So, wow, you've accomplished quite a few things this year on the projects and on your major project of Molly Hill. So please tell us what has been happening.
Yeah, sure, Bonnie. It has been an action-packed year. I guess when I think about the year, I probably start in October 2017, where we had a bit of a reset in the market. We raised a little bit of money and told the market that we wouldn't need to raise money to do the things we had in our program for 2018, and the market liked that a little bit. The share price went up, some warrants got exercised, and that reinforced the strength of our cash position. So going into the new year, we were starting off cashed up, which is great, and then in January we published an upgrade to the ore reserve, and I will go through this sequentially rather than project by project. But in January we published an upgrade to the ore reserve for Molly Hill, taking it from a 6-year life to as an open pit to a 7-year life as an open pit, and with a very strong indication of another year or two of underground mining after that. And that was great news for Molly Hill, and we can then prepared to convert that ore reserve into all the things we need to do to produce an upgraded feasibility study.
And you also found copper around Molly Hill that you said that could probably benefit the project in the beginning as well.
We did, and let me come back to that as about point number 11, or in the year's achievements, Bonnie. The following month in February, we announced our maiden resource assessment for the Kapunda copper project in South Australia, of almost 120,000 tonnes of copper in the ground, and at a grade which doesn't appear all that high, but it is certainly high enough and quite amenable for in situ recovery. So, we started the year on a bit of a roll, and then in March, we announced we had agreed a transaction to acquire the Bonya tenements, or an interest in the Bonya tenements, about 30 kilometres from Molly Hill, and that's where the copper project is. The extra copper project in the Northern Territory is close to Molly Hill, as well as about 13 outcropping tungsten deposits, and believe it or not, a vanadium deposit that we're still getting some reports on to learn a bit about. So things were pretty busy. In June, the tungsten price and the molybdenum price probably reached record levels over the previous 4 or so years. The outlook for both those commodities looked very healthy, and that is great for Molly Hill. In August, we updated and produced the updated feasibility study for Molly Hill, giving a net present value of $100-odd million, an internal rate of return of almost 60%, but very, very importantly, an operating cost that's way below most of the other operating costs of tungsten players or potential players in the industry, and that stands us in very good stead to get, we hope, the project into development, to get it financed, to get it built, and also when we operate it, for when the bad times come, as they inevitably do with any project, others will be suffering badly well before we will be.
And how did you achieve the low operating costs?
It's there's a number of things contributing, Bonnie. One is over the last 3 or 4 years, we have done a lot of work on ore sorting at using Molly Hill ore, and that allows us to get rid of something like 40% of the rock before we put it through the most expensive part of the plant to build and also to run, which i.e. the grinding circuit and then the and then the flotation circuit. The other thing that stands in our favour compared with a bunch of the other projects around is, while we are quite a high grade tungsten deposit for open cut mining, but on top of that high grade, that always helps your cost. Grade does to some extent make the manager, but on top of that, we've also got quite good molybdenum grade as well, and the byproduct credit from molybdenum gets credited back against the against our cost, and in effect covers the molybdenum covers about 50% of the operating cost at Molly Hill, which is very nice indeed, and that's essentially why the cost is so low.
Oh, that is really excellent for the project. And so what is your plans going forward? I noticed that you're looking for offtake and financing to put Molly Hill into production, and how is that progressing?
Yeah, sure, Bonnie. One of the final points in the list of achievements is we a few weeks ago appointed Argent Partners out of London, a corporate advisory body to hold our hand and help us through the process of securing of nailing down the detail of some offtake for both tungsten and molybdenum, and also for finance. Look, we might be able to do this job ourselves, but I'm equally sure that if we engage professionals to help us, we will get a much better result for our investors, and it's important that we get the best result possible. So, you know, there's been conversations with a bunch of people. The moly players are particularly keen on getting a supply of molybdenum. There are tungsten players who are very keen on getting an assured and reliable additional supply of tungsten. So we're optimistic that we will have offtake coming through in the next offtake agreements coming through in the next little while, and finance agreements not too far behind it. These things always take a while. They're certainly not going to have too much to report in that department before Christmas, but hopefully not too far into the new year there'll be some positive developments we can tell our investors about in that department.
That's excellent. And I noticed with Kapunda you received a government grant from Australia to explore that project. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure, Bonnie. At Kapunda, we're doing something that's slightly different to get from the norm to get copper out of the ground. You know, we're not planning on digging big holes into the ground or going underground, which is very expensive. We're planning to do this with in situ recovery techniques, put a borehole into the ground, dissolve the copper, and then pump it out. This is quite common in uranium. It's very common in potash. It only happens in copper in a couple of places in Arizona and a couple of places in Russia, but it does happen. The conditions have to be absolutely perfect, and we spent quite a bit of time working with the Australian government bodies that give grants for this sort of thing. And in July of this year, they I think it was July, it might have been August, but thereabouts, they were good enough to let us know that they had approved a grant of 2.85 million Aussie dollars. In pounds, that's probably about £1.5 million, give or take a bit, to demonstrate the feasibility and the viability of this technology as it applies at Kapunda. You know, they're obviously hoping that this technology can be used not just at Kapunda, but at a whole bunch of other otherwise stranded copper assets around Australia and around the globe, in fact, and we are of the same mind. So
That's
what
very
we are learning.
Oh, sorry, that's very innovative. And just lastly, what is your plan for pilot in U.S. in Nevada?
At Pilot Mountain, as investors will be aware, Bonnie, the we produced a scoping study in September of this year, and we've been working since before that, and indeed since then, on some metallurgical test work. That takes a while. This work is being done in Guangzhou in China, where they did the first phase of this some years ago. They're now doing the second phase, what they call lock cycle test work. We're going through that. We're also working with the local power utility and the environmental agencies to take us through to the next stage of this, because we're working on pre-feasibility for Pilot Mountain. This will take a little while. There's a bunch of work to do, but that's what the next year or so's work at Pilot Mountain is involved in. There might be a little bit of drilling, but not a lot. We're not spending much of shareholders' money on drilling anywhere in the next little while. There will be some more drilling at Bonya near Molly Hill, but again at low cost. But at Pilot Mountain, there will be some drilling, but the work essentially is towards the activities that take us towards a pre-feasibility study on Pilot Mountain, because it's a very large tungsten resource by US standards, and there is no tungsten currently being mined in the United States, and there is an opportunity for us to remedy that. It'll take a little while because we're early stage, but it's earlier stage than Molly Hill, but there is a definite opportunity there.
And Mick, what are your plans on how you're going to end the year and finish up with all of your projects?
Yeah, Bonnie, some of our investors, as will know, that we've had a bunch of warrants exercised over the last 6 weeks or so. We've raised almost £600,000 from investors exercising warrants. So I guess we're finishing this year the way we finished last year, pretty well cashed up, and that's a great position to be in. And using that, we'll have a drilling program going out at Bonya to test those tungsten deposits near Molly Hill. Perhaps I think February is more or less when we've scheduled to have that, once we get the approvals complete. There's a bit more work coming out of Pilot Mountain that I hope to be able to talk to investors about in coming weeks, and also a bit more news out of Kapunda. So for investors thinking about Thor Mining, strap on. This is going to be fun for the next couple of months.
A lot going on.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Blytheweigh Business News. Have a very profitable day.